think. Do we just want to wait for the vice mayor to get back and we can start the regular meeting?
Yes. There he goes. Very good. Can I start?
Mhm.
Okay. Welcome to our city council meeting on the 5th of April, 2021. Let's start with, I'll go with Councilmember Coulson to say the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
Of course. Stand up here. To the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I did have a momentary panic there of being in second grade.
Very good. Megan, can we have roll call, please?
Yep. Councilmember Beach,
Here.
Councilmember Coulson,
Here.
Councilmember Brownrigg,
Present.
Vice Mayor Ortiz,
Here.
Mayor O'Brien.
Here. And then to our interim city attorney, a report out.
We do not have closed session, so no report out, Madam Mayor.
Great, thank you. So I'll go right into upcoming events. I just wanted to let people know that we now have a community survey of the old Bayshore Highway corridor. The city of Burlingame is conducting a feasibility study to look at potential roadway improvement designs for the old Bayshore Highway. This study will look at improving access, safety, operation, and aesthetics for all modes of transportation, including pedestrian, bike, vehicles, and transit. The other thing we have is the Burlingame Youth Advisory Committee fundraiser. The Burlingame Youth Advisory Committee has created a Burlingame Stands United Against Hate mask fundraiser to support their social justice initiative for the school year. And I don't have the link offhand to go to. But I'm sure it's on the Park and Rec page of the Burlingame, www.burlingame.org. And then just a reminder, Sunday is Fresh Market. I know the time used to be 9 to 1:30. It is now 9 to 1. So just a quick reminder. Does any colleagues have any other events? It doesn't look like it. Okay. All right. So with that, we will move on to presentations. We do have 2 presentations today. And our first one is the Ability Path presentation. And this is going to be presented by Mr. Brian Nader.
Hello.
Nader, sorry.
No, that's okay, Mayor O'Brien. Thank you. And hopefully you can see the screen here.
Yes.
So
very
just
good.
as a
Thank
quick
you.
reminder, it's great to see so many familiar faces. And thank you for providing the time. So we've served children and families and adults with developmental disabilities for over 100 years, founded in Burlingame back in 1920. So just a quick reminder on that. What I'm going to share with you is what our team has been doing as we get ready to come out of the shelter in place orders and the restrictive orders in modifying all of our services for the families that we serve. So We serve about 1,500 individuals every week. That's down slightly since the pandemic, but we hope to get back to those kind of numbers again shortly. We provide over 180 online classes for adults with developmental disabilities every single week. Since the fall, we provided almost 4,000 activity packs for those adults who may have limited access to virtual services. We're working through what a hybrid model is going to look like in the future, because one of the things that the adults we serve have told us, they really enjoy a lot of the classes, though they want to see their friends and activities in person as well. So we're working with our team, and we also have a meeting with the state of California on sharing our idea and vision for what a true choice can look like for the folks that we serve. And we're thinking about having classes and programs that are offered almost like a college or school schedule on a quarterly basis. By the way, we operate 2 locations in Burlingame for adults, one over in Stanton, and then on Marco Polo Way as well. Children's therapy and family support services. We've already started to begin some in-person therapy services again, as well as early intervention. We're working on a hybrid model that allows, again, parents a lot of choice, because sometimes schedules don't make it convenient. Certainly pre-COVID, traffic was a huge nightmare, but also family schedules may be such that it's better to actually have a virtual session, teletherapy, than meeting in person. But there's some things you can do in person that are certainly much more effective for certain individuals. And we're going to be moving that back to a hybrid model, providing parents with a lot more choice. So again, we also have 2 locations for therapy and family support services in Burlingame, actually 2 different buildings on Marco Polo Way. Our Learning Links preschool in Burlingame, we're running at about 60% capacity, and this is due to restrictions put in place by the county and childcare licensing. I will tell you, we operate at a loss in operating our preschool during COVID, but we've been operating since June 15th of last year. We have very strict protocols. We have not had an incident of COVID at either one of our 3 preschools, which is pretty remarkable. We're hoping that San Mateo County and childcare licensing modifies ratios in the coming month or 2. We think it should be by June, no later than that, which will allow us to move back to full enrollment. And in Burlingame, that's around 110 to 120 kids. And I think for any of us to go back to kind of, if you want to call it normal, preschool is a key element for many families being able to go back to work and having access to preschool. So we're hoping that that changes soon. I will tell you that right now, hiring teachers for preschools is very challenging. A lot of teachers were pulled out as some families who had the means put together social bubbles with friends and neighbors to have a small group with 1 or 2 teachers for their children and maybe a few neighbor friends. So that has put a lot of pressure of being able to get those teachers back into the market, that we can bring them back into the classroom. So that's where we're at right now. I've had the chance to go back because I have to do some documentation for kind of the last year. And it's remarkable looking at what we were dealing with this time a year ago and how much all of our programs really took something that was very terrifying for all of us, daunting in what it looked like, and have put together a very robust set of services. I think it's important to note that we have not had 1 furlough throughout the entire COVID. Our board committed, before we knew what the funding model looked like, to pay all of our staff their full wages, which we have done since March of last year. So even though enrollment is down, some of our services are not getting the same kind of funding. The fact is, we are a service organization. We did have an endowment. We did use a portion of that. We felt in the 100 years of service, the time of need is when people need you to be there. And we made the commitment to make sure our staff knew we would be there for them, and that the community that we serve could rely on our services and support. So, we're very proud of that fact and proud to be members of the Burlingame community. So wanted to give you just an update on the individuals and families with children or adults with developmental disabilities and our inclusive preschool, what we have planned. And we're looking to go back bigger, better, and stronger than March, 14th or 15th of 2020. Will be even better than that when we get back into full swing of services. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions or comments from council members or staff. So again, thank you for providing this time so I could share with you what we're doing.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing with us. To my colleagues, does anyone have a question? Councilmember Brownrigg.
Thank you. I want to start by thanking the mayor for inviting Mr. Nider to address us this evening. March is National Disability Awareness Month, and so it's hard to get everything on calendars when you only meet twice a month. But I want to really thank the mayor for inviting Mr. Nider, and we appreciate all of us the work you do in Burlingame. I want to ask you briefly about how you think about older adults with disabilities and what our communities need to be thinking about for them as we think about additional housing and so forth. Is that something that worries you from, in terms of taking care of your community?
That is a great question. It is we have a aging well committee made up primarily of parents that are seniors, and many in their late 70s and even 80s. And the anxiety they have over who's going to care for their adult children it's painful to listen to. And so that housing need, and I'll say we'll call it 40s or 50s for the individuals we serve, is absolutely critical. We've been working on a project over a Marco Polo Way for several years. We'll have more information to share about that in the coming months. But that is one of the primary focus areas, council member, is to be able to provide housing for that population and those adults to make sure that they have, very nice and comfortable living arrangements into their seniorhood.
Keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Before I call on Councilmember Coulson, it would be great actually to have a presentation futuristically on that project you are working on Marco Polo, so our community really knows what is going on in that area and how it benefits the community.
Absolutely, would be happy to do that.
Great. Councilmember Coulson. Unmute yourself. There you go.
Thank you. Yeah. So thank you very much, Mr. Nider. I am curious about the preschool. Are the students, you mentioned the teachers, and I understand that, but are the students coming back? Are they the same students, or are you getting a new, are those students heading off to preschool, or have they found alternative arrangements? And so now you're attracting a new group of students. I'm just curious what the
Sure.
kind of attrition is.
That's a great
family.
question. It's a little bit of everything. I would say most are probably new families, though some are returning that have been at home sheltering in. Their offices were maybe, closed. And now that they're starting to go back, in fact, I want to say we had 15 families start this week. That gives you an idea of kind of what's happened. It was a lot. So we're seeing a slow return to enrollment, but again, maybe it's 50-50, 60-40, something like that. But I'd be happy to track down the details for you so you know what it's like for the Burlingame community.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. I just think you guys are a really important role model for the rest of the school community as to how you're getting back, and the value that the parents see, and the recognizing the stress that the parents are seeing. So this daycare option, is one of the things I know is keeping most employee, that's been a really, in fact, I heard today, I was just looking through some teacher negotiations in some other districts, and one of their demands for going back was childcare, needing childcare. So
critical.
obviously, a lot of these agencies did not make it, and I'm really delighted yours did. And thanks for giving us.
Absolutely.
Anyone else? Okay, if not, thank you very much for this update, Mr. Nider, and we do hope to hear from you in the near future.
Thank you, Mayor O'Brien. Appreciate it. Have a good evening, everyone.
You too. Take care.
Thank you, Brian.
That leads us to our second presentation, which is the Oak Grove, Carolyn Avenue traffic signal project update, and Director Matusa.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. I'm here to with my team to give you an update regarding safety improvements at the intersection of Oak Grove and Carolyn Avenue. As you're very familiar with the intersection, I'm not going to get into the detail. The focus of the presentation today is about the traffic signal And there are two variations of them that staff, our consultant team will be proposing to you. In addition to that, the project will involve pedestrian improvements, bulb outs, and all those different features. But focus today would be essentially about the traffic signal. With that, I would like to introduce you to Steve Fitzison, project manager from W-Trans, who will be giving you the presentation.
Hello, yeah, my name is Steve Fitzsimons. I'm from W-Trans. Hopefully you can see that on my background. I'm going to share my screen. Please give me a moment to kick that off. Okay. All right, I have several slides for you. I'm trying to keep it down to 15 minutes. So with your permission, I will just go straight through quickly and then we can have the questions at the end. So thank
Sounds
you.
good. Yeah.
All right. So the project W-Trans has been working with staff on is traffic signal improvements on Oak Grove Avenue near the Caltrain crossing. I'm going to talk about project history to date, mostly focused on a traffic operations study that we did where we analyzed we came up with three alternatives for proceeding forward. One of the alternatives was flashing yellow arrow, which is something that City of Burlingame doesn't have any traffic signals using that operations type right now. So I'm going to talk a bit in detail about what that's all about. We're also going to talk about rail safety improvements and the potential schedule for moving forward. Of the operations alternatives that we identified, one is called the no build option. The no is in quotes here because there are some improvements that are needed at the intersection that can be made whether or not we go forward with the new signal at Carolyn Avenue. First would be upgrading pedestrian signals to the countdown type as shown on the right, where you have a timer counting down seconds remaining and the flashing don't walk interval so people know how long they have left to get across the street with the signal. Communications between the traffic signal controller and the Caltrain crossing controller would be upgraded to accommodate any kind of upgrades they may need to do in their equipment with the upcoming electrification project. We also looked at something, and no decision has been made on this yet at all, but there are some operational efficiencies at the existing signal that could be gained in the east-west direction, Oak Grove Avenue, by converting the existing split phasing, we call it, where eastbound has a green and then separately westbound has its own green, to a flashing yellow arrow operation, and I'll come back to that later. These are the levels of service that we found during the peak hours, lots of Cs you see there in the morning and evening peak hours. The delay is slightly different in the existing and the no build conditions, but the magnitude of the delay is low enough that most drivers probably wouldn't notice it. And we identified two options for build. Option one is the current phasing at California Drive and something similar implemented at Carolyn, which was what we call the split phase, where east and west are split into two separate time intervals. And option two is having the east-west movements at both intersections operate with flashing yellow arrows. For both the build options, it assumes that a signal would be built, a new traffic signal at Carolyn Avenue, with the goal of improving safety and making the assignment of right-of-way more clear. In other words, making it easier for travelers to know when it's their turn to go. It would be compatible with the current Caltrain operation and also with any upgrades that they may do in the communications between their control equipment and the traffic signal control equipment. Build option one, as I mentioned, is with the split phase at California Drive and a similar split phase at Carolyn. The cycle length would be a little bit longer because there are two signals that need to be coordinated together, and there are additional moves at Carolyn that need to be incorporated into the operation. And that would result in higher levels of stop delay and longer queue lengths, or another way to say that is longer lines of cars waiting to move through the intersections. Build option two uses flashing yellow operation. I'll show you in a moment that the delays are slightly lower with this build option than they are with the other build option. Here's a chart of levels of service and delay. Again, especially in the bottom half, you see a lot of level service C values. You see a few locations that degrade the level service D. These level service grades are just like your grades in school. The D is worse than a C, and an A is the best. And one location we go up to a level of service E, which is not desirable. In the blue letters, you see levels of service for the future volumes, which were based upon a study done at a recent location, and they're following pretty much the same trend, but a little bit exaggerated because, of course, the volumes in the future would be a bit higher. So one of the options was flashing yellow arrow. And since you don't have any of those signals in town right now, we thought we would just spend a bit of time explaining what it is. The large traffic signal depiction on the left side of the slide shows 4 arrow sections. 3 of them should look really familiar to you. They're just like the standard left turn arrow, the green on the bottom, the yellow in the middle, and the red on the top. There's an extra display added, the 3rd one down, which is also a yellow arrow, but when it is energized, it flashes. And the way this works is that when the left turn phase that you're waiting for comes up, the first thing that you will see is a green arrow, just like you do with any normal protected traffic signal movement. And then it'll go to yellow, and then very briefly to red, and then it comes back to the flashing yellow arrow. And the flashing yellow arrow will keep flashing as long as the through movements on your street are green. And then when they go yellow, this signal will go back to the yellow arrow. And when they go red, this signal will go to the red arrow. And when the arrow is flashing yellow, it tells drivers that they can proceed as long as there's a gap in oncoming traffic and there's no one using the conflicting crossing. These next few slides demonstrate the 2 alternatives and what they might look like. The green arrows on this slide represent the signal movements that would have a green display facing those drivers. The rest of them would all be red, but we didn't want to fill the whole page up with red and show them all. We just showed you the ones that were green. The rest would be red. On the left side of this drawing at the California Drive intersection, everything should look very familiar because it's exactly what we have out there right now. It starts off with left turns for northbound and southbound California Drive. We add Carolyn Avenue signalized, and the movement on Carolyn is eastbound because we have a signalized move at California heading towards the tracks, and we want to be sure those drivers get a green when they get to Carolyn so they can move right through, and there's very little risk of anyone getting stuck on the tracks. Next, we go to one of the left turns ends, the other one keeps going, and one of the through movements starts up. And then to California Drive, north and southbound through movements going. Notice at Carolyn, we still have the eastbound green displayed. Then we go to eastbound at both intersections, switch around to westbound at both intersections, and then have Carolyn Drive get its north-south. And this time at California, we have westbound green so that anybody at Carolyn who turns towards the tracks will be able to get off the tracks and through California intersection and be at very little risk of being stuck on the tracks. That's option 1. Option 2, we go to flashing yellow operations. So it looks a little bit different at California Drive in the east-west direction. And we start off with the left turns on California and eastbound at Carolyn, the same as before. We go to a through and a left, and then we go to the through movements on California, keeping the eastbound at Carolyn. Then we go to left turn phases, which would be added as part of the signal modification. This would be a normal green arrow at the start of the flashing yellow arrow operation. And after that, you would switch to a flashing yellow arrow operation. And both through phases would have, the through phases in both directions would have a green display, and those left turners for eastbound and westbound would have a flashing yellow arrow display. After that, we would bring the Carolyn Avenue north-south in, same as you saw earlier, and the flashing yellow arrow would continue at California Drive. Okay, just to talk a minute about rail safety. The signal at California Drive, the existing signal for decades now, has had a feature where when a train is detected approaching Oak Grove Avenue, the rail controller of that crossing sends a digital signal to the traffic signal controller at California Drive. And the California Drive now knows that a train is coming. It terminates any green phase at the intersection and it goes to a green for westbound traffic so that anybody who is stuck on the tracks has a chance to get off the tracks before the train arrives. The next thing that'll start happening is that the bells for the train crossing start sounding an alarm, and then the gates start coming down. And once the gates are down, California Drive and the Carolyn Drive signal would go to an operation with compatible phases when the gates are down, which would basically be northbound and southbound through traffic moves. As a second added safety feature here, we're proposing to add blank out signs. There's one shown for the northbound right turn at California Drive and another one for the southbound right turn at Carolyn Avenue. And these signs are normally just black rectangles, not energized, until a train comes. And then when that train gets detected approaching the crossing, these signs will illuminate and they will post a no right turn signal to the right turners that would be turning towards the tracks, so that they'll wait away from the tracks and not too close to the tracks. We looked at a comparison of queue lengths being the length of the lines of cars waiting to move across the intersections. And on these sketches, starting with the lower left, we show what the no build would look like. And the blue portion of the lines drawn is the approaching queue of cars waiting to go through the intersection. And there's an arrow drawn at the end of the blue. And that's for the average signal cycle during the peak hours. The yellow is what's called the 95th percentile. This is often used by traffic engineers. It is telling you what the 19th worst, most congested cycle out of 20 would look like. And that would be the blue plus yellow length on each approach. The red is the max, so the worst of all 20 out of 20 that you would see during a peak hour. And then on the right, build option 1 is on the top, build option 2 is on the bottom. The blue arrows are posted in the same place as they are in the no build option, so you can see the comparison easily. So what you see is that really jumps out at me on California Drive, the queue lengths are all longer than they are in the no build. This is because, as I mentioned earlier, the traffic signal cycle is longer. And it just takes longer to get back to your movement when you're on the red and you're waiting for your next green, and the queue lengths build up proportionally to that. On Carolyn Avenue, the queue length with the signal is a little bit shorter than it is now in the northbound direction and in the westbound direction. And these pictures are for the morning peak. In the evening peak, the delays on Carolyn Avenue get much more exaggerated. I'm sorry, on California Drive get much more exaggerated. And the delays on Carolyn Avenue, especially northbound, are quite long, with the signal being added and the longer cycle and the delays that come from the long cycle. These are our best estimates right now. In the real world, what will happen is the signal timing will be optimized, especially once we have normal traffic flow back. And you'll probably see something that's not as bad as what these slides depict. There are flashing yellow installations in the Bay Area. There's quite a few of them now. We were able to find one in Belmont that was the closest one we could find to Burlingame. So if anybody wants to go drive and see it, you could. Across the bay in San Leandro, there's another one. These ones have been in operation for 2 years and 1 year now. Several in San Francisco, one in Santa Rosa, about the 5th one down there that I'm going to be coming back to in a moment with a video explaining what flashing yellow arrow operations are about. 12 in Petaluma and 4 in Windsor that were installed 4 years ago and 3 years ago, respectively, and W-Trans designed those. So we do have a fair amount of experience with flashing yellow arrow operations. So what is a flashing yellow arrow operation? This is a public presentation that the city of Santa Rosa put together when they installed their first flashing arrow signal. There are several of these on the internet. This is the one that we found that was the most easy to understand and nicely done.
Have you ever seen a flashing yellow arrow on a traffic light?
I hope everyone can hear that. Would you please raise your hand if you
Santa Rosa, here today to talk to you about a new type of traffic signal. Beginning in 2013, flashing yellow left turn signals will be installed in some of the intersections in Santa Rosa. Studies show that drivers better understand the need to yield to oncoming traffic with a new flashing yellow arrow signal. These new flashing yellow arrow signals give drivers more chances to make left turns, but more importantly, they stress the need to use caution when turning left. Some drivers may be confused when they see a flashing yellow arrow because they're not exactly sure what to do. Let's run through how these signals operate. The green arrow means you have the right of way to make a left turn. All incoming traffic and pedestrians are stopped. The solid yellow arrow is a warning telling you the light is about to turn red. The red arrow means stop and wait. Now for the new part, a flashing yellow arrow. The flashing yellow arrow means you can make a left turn if there's a safe gap from oncoming traffic. Check for oncoming bicycles and pedestrians attempting to cross the intersection. Always yield to the pedestrians, as they have the right of way. If you don't see a gap in traffic, don't take a chance. Just wait until the next green arrow appears.
The City of Santa Rosa will be evaluating this new technology at locations throughout the city. It will be up to all of us to make sure we use them safely.
Okay, so Santa Rosa has installed quite a few more since 2013. They've been very happy with them. The signals are pretty intuitive once they're installed. W-Trans's experience with these, we've probably designed a couple dozen now, but around 16 of them have been installed and operating for a couple of years. We always advise the agencies to put up the warning flags on their signal heads and have advanced warning signs that say changed operation ahead. We always advise the agencies that when the day comes to actually turn these flashing yellow arrow signals on, that they have a police officer standing by, just in case drivers get confused and you need to have some direction of traffic going on at first. In our experience to date, we've not had a single location where the officer had to get out of his or her car. They find that the signals actually are pretty easy to understand once they're flashing in front of you and doing their thing in front of you. So just to summarize the benefits, the goal of this project, it was actually initially developed by the TSP Commission to improve safety and to clarify right-of-way assignment. They are upgrades included in anticipation of the increased traffic operation from the electrification project. The lighting at Carolyn Avenue would be greatly enhanced from what it is now because the street lights, the overhead street lights would be installed as part of the traffic signal, and all the crosswalks and all the vehicle approach lanes would be brightly lit. Timing, as I said, can be adjusted to optimize operations. Striping enhancements are also proposed, including high visibility crosswalks and a bike box for Southbound Carolyn to make it easier for the students to get to the high school. The challenges that we discussed earlier were the increased queuing and delays, and increased delays to all modes. I didn't really talk about pedestrians, but it's important to keep pedestrians in mind also, that we will have delays to pedestrians who are waiting to cross that'll be higher than they are now. There are some other options to consider, and if the council wants to weigh in on them tonight, that would be appreciated. But if not, we can certainly follow up later. That would include bulb outs at the Carolyn intersection, at 3 of the corners at Carolyn intersection, and the bulb outs would shorten the crossing lengths. There's a chance we could put in an island on the northbound leg, and also we could put in no U-turn signs. The schedule going forward, the first 3 lines here actually are previously done or already underway. The pre-final design, the TSP Commission, and permit applications to Joint Power Board and PG&E. Final design could be completed as early as May 2021, and construction could start in winter 2021 or spring of 2020. And the city's also looking into options right now to apply for grant funding. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you for your attention and time for discussion.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Do my colleagues have any questions? Okay, let's start with Vice Mayor Ortiz, followed by Council Member Brownrigg.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I did go through this intersection many times when I used to drop my children off at Burlingame High School. And I always found it to be extremely dangerous. So I'm very happy that we're doing this. So thank you for your presentation, Mr. Fitzsimons.
Right.
The question I have is when it strikes me that morning when the trains are at the peak of their volume, the cars are the peak of their volume, and the pedestrians going to the high school at the peak of their volume. It seems like it's an extremely dangerous intersection, but otherwise it's not so much. So I'm thinking, is there a way to do signaling that's specifically for that morning period to slow people down and take care of the issues then? And then when I'm looking at your volumes and your queues, it seems like the no build is a good option for most of the day. So any thoughts on that?
It's very common to have the signals coordinated during the peak hour, but not during the other hours of the day. And to time the Carolyn signal to be very quickly responsive to traffic as it approaches the intersection. It's very difficult to actually turn it off outside of the peak hour. That can be confusing to drivers, and it's not accepted practice nationally or locally. But you certainly can have very efficient operations with each intersection doing its own thing to make it be more responsive to public. And the delay issues that I mentioned would be much, much less obvious.
Great, thank you.
Councilmember Brownrigg.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Does any of our thinking change? I think this is directed to Mr. Murtuza probably. Does any of our thinking change if California goes on a road diet? Does that make these changes even better or makes them even more delays? Or have we thought about that?
We have not finalized we did look at preliminary analysis when we were doing the master plan for road diets, but we have not fully completed that study in coordination. As we work on this aspect of that, we will coordinate that to see whether the delays will be impacted if we were to do a diet. And so before we implement that, this project, we will confirm that.
Mr. Fitzsimon, do you have any instinctive reactions if California were to be put on a road diet?
Generally, it would be an independent issue. The number of lanes would probably stay the same. Of course, the study that would be done would determine that, whether you could reduce the through lanes or not, but it would probably stay the same. So it would probably be independent. And the comparisons that I showed you earlier would remain pretty much the same.
Okay. And then my last question is, and I am in a minority at the moment, but I've long hoped that this intersection might become a quiet zone so that our residents there wouldn't have to listen to train horns. That involves gate down and a number of other things. Is there anything about a quiet zone that would preempt or change this recommendation? I don't think so, but I just want to ask the question.
I don't think so either. Sorry, go ahead, Director, please.
Thank you. No, the quiet zone is an independent utility on its own, and there's nothing this will change. Any improvements made here changes that. Quiet zone essentially involves installation of quad gates, safety improvements around the gate area and the pedestrian access area. And so it would not change any of the proposed improvements as a result of this project.
All right, thank you. I second the Vice Mayor's comment that this intersection has long been a deeply troubling one. So I appreciate improving it.
I have a quick question for Director Murtuza. So how much would this cost, considering I don't know if it's going to make a huge difference at that intersection. I do find that flashing yellow, I think, is going to be very confusing for people.
We have a rough cost estimate. As we have not completed the design, we don't have the final design estimate numbers, but we are looking at approximately construction cost is about $900,000. And we are looking at approximately $650,000 from the federal grant, federal opportunity that has just become available in the last week. And if we don't use that, then we would have to look for other sources of funds, whether it's the general fund or the Measure A fund.
Thank you. Is there anyone else?
We're going to have public comment, right? I just want
Well, I'll get there. Yeah, I have Councilmember Beach hand is raised.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have a comment, not a question, so maybe I'll wait till after public comment.
Okay.
Thank you.
Councilmember Colson, did you have a question or was it a comment?
I just noticed that I was just curious. It looks like there might be a few people waiting.
Yeah, there will be.
And I'm somewhat baffled by this the
Okay.
process on this, in the sense of the two options, the two build options just extend the wait times there, and I'm just kind of curious what the what the real objective is. Is it a safety objective or is it a traffic flow objective?
Okay, do we have an answer to that question
Yeah,
by either you, Mr. Fitzsimons, or Director Matuza?
I'll take the first response, and Steve, help me if there's anything that you need to add. Primarily, this project is about safety improvements. It's not about increasing speeds or increasing flow of number of cars there. We understand California Drive has more traffic than Carolyn Avenue, and the next biggest leg of the intersection that has more traffic is the Okra. So for the reasons that we have there, when we were to balance the safety improvements on Carolyn's side of the railroad tracks, it will affect California Drive. So there is queuing as a result of that on the west side of the tracks. So there is, as you saw, the delays. Steve, if you can bring those the level of service slide back on, you will see there is going to be delay, but the option 2, which is the flashing yellow, has least or the lower delay involved. But these are the trade-offs you have. Either you do safety improvements or you leave as it is with minor improvements, as pointed out by Steve on the no build option. So outside of that, there's very little you can do to help improve the safety, because the traffic coming from the east side going in the westerly direction, they don't know whether even though there are adequate signs posted there, there's always this confusion that you're going to see an oncoming car from California Drive, especially the northbound side of California Drive, making a right turn, and you don't have much time to react. And that's a concern and has always been there. And then there are times there are pedestrians walking in that crosswalk, and they are subject to that unforeseen condition. So that's what we're trying to address. Steve, please.
I think you covered it very nicely. I have nothing to add.
All right, thank you. So I'm going to open it up to public comment. So Megan, do we have any emails before I start calling on people?
We do not.
Okay, so then I will call on Adrian, please.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, Adrian.
All righty, thank you very much. And thank you for discussing this. So I was in the Burlingame Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Committee meeting when this came up a couple of times on the agenda. So I thought I'd weigh in a little bit about it. First of all, I know, I also have had 2 children go through BHS, both walking, biking, and driving themselves. And I know it's a very tricky intersection. It's difficult, it's confusing, and it works. If you look at, for the pedestrian hits, there aren't any. On the statewide traffic reporting system, there aren't any pedestrian hits at the intersection, not for the past 5 years. Then also, there haven't been any motor vehicles hit by the train, but the people who get hurt are the pedestrians and bicyclists. So if we make a change where it has that motor vehicles can go through, make a left turn they're more focused on the yellow flashing light, making a left turn, then currently the left turn is controlled. So you don't have to worry as a pedestrian when you're crossing a crosswalk. But if you make it on flashing yellow light, when you get your turn to go, like there's a break in traffic, the drivers will tend to speed up to go through, and the last thing they'll see are pedestrians. And we do have a school that's close to 2,000 students right there on the corner. So if this were to be considered, you are only changing a level C to a level D or a D to a C. It's really not much better, but it could drastically alter the pedestrian safety, because now, even though it's confusing, it's working. So the additional enhancements at Carolyn, should you consider putting in the yellow flashing light? The BPAC really did want the bulb outs, particularly at the southeast corner, which is where the football stadium is, to have a bulb out pushing out to reduce that, make it a much sharper turn for motor vehicles. And a pedestrian, it's just, here it says island, north leg. That's actually a pedestrian refuge island. There's space currently, I don't know if you can see my hands. There's about 5 feet of a useless painted lane there. You could make that a pedestrian refuge island. So if pedestrians are trying to cross, they have a place to land crossing the 70 feet. No U-turns is great. We would like the no turn right on red at Oak Grove to be full-time, not just when the trains are coming. BPAC's been requesting a stop sign there the whole time. So if there's going to be a no turn on red, where that little pork chop right on, as you're going northbound on California Drive and you're going to go make right eastbound over the tracks, we'd like that no turn on red all the time. And then the other thing to recall is that there is a 15-mile-per-hour speed limit at BHS. If a car has a green light and they're going 35 to 38, what's going to slow, like currently now, the stop sign slows them down so that when they accelerate them in a 15-mile-per-hour zone, they can actually go 15. But now they're going to be crossing the intersection going 35 because they have the green light. So what's going to slow them down? So we'd like some changes if this is approved. Thank you. Some more improvements.
Thank you. Is there anyone else from the public? Okay, I don't see anyone with their hands raised. So I'll go back to my colleagues. Councilmember Brownrick.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm sorry, it probably was said by somebody, but can somebody remind us what the Traffic Safety and Parking Commission decided with respect to these different trade-offs? What was their recommendation?
Thank you, Councilmember Brownrick. Traffic Safety Commission has been looking at this for the last at least 6 to 8 months, I believe, and they had 2 discussions. And at the last meeting, I believe the last meeting, they voted 4-1 in favor of the yellow flashing signal option.
And the other items that Ms. Lee raised with respect to BPAC, it's a little hard, I think, to have all of this stuff come, at least from my point of view, to council kind of raw. I really do feel like this is what commissions are for, to help sort through trade-offs like that. Where the BPAC choices and bulb outs, was that addressed by the Traffic Safety Parking Commission?
The Traffic Safety Commission did not make any motion relative to that, but we have acknowledged those comments about the bulb outs and other safety intersection improvements. So we will be looking into that.
Okay, thank you.
So then to piggyback on that, so wouldn't it be better then to incorporate potentially all the improvements and see which works best? I just find this is being piecemealed.
So if I may answer that question, the improvements, bulb outs and other improvements are ancillary improvements. They will not address the core issue of the right-of-way, which is right now traffic from the west side of the railroad tracks have the right-of-way, and the traffic on the east side don't know whether it's both pedestrians, bicyclists, or the motorists. They don't know whether what they're expecting. So that's essentially all the other improvements that were mentioned would not address any of that.
Okay, Vice Mayor Ortiz.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just have a question as to, I found very interesting the comment that Ms. Lee brought up about the people paying attention to the yellow turn lights versus the pedestrians on the crosswalk. And I wonder what your thoughts are on that.
I would like to have Steve answer that. Steve, you have designed these signals and you have a lot of experience with other agencies in field cases. So could you answer that?
Sure. W-Trans's direct experience has all been positive. As I mentioned, we always recommend that the local agency have police officers standing by to direct traffic should the need arise. We always recommend the stand-mounted warning sign that says signal changed ahead with the 2 red flags sticking up from the top, pointing in two different directions. The new traffic signal heads will all have the red or orange flags on the top of them. You may have noticed that in the video that I showed how the red flags are up, and they stay up for a month or 2, depending on how long the city wants them to stay up. We have yet to have a police officer actually have to get up and direct traffic. And when we did our ones in Petaluma, we were able to be on site as well. And the police officer, we thought they were gone actually because they weren't out doing anything, and we couldn't even see their car at first. And then we found out they were parked about half a block away and said it worked fine from the start. It's actually much more intuitive when you're in your car for some reason than it is when you see it like in the video and when you just see it cold for the first time like that. So we've had very positive experience. There have been cities that have had complaints from pedestrians who were concerned about the drivers facing the flashing yellow arrow and making the turn and then hitting the brakes when they got to the crosswalk and realized someone was in the crosswalk. And one of those cities that we know of, that would be the city of Pleasanton, actually changed the operation so that anytime the pedestrian phase was active, they would not allow the pedestrian walk signal to be active concurrent with the left turn flashing yellow arrow. A better way to say that would be that whenever there was a pedestrian phase being served, the left turn drivers would see a red arrow only and never the flashing yellow arrow. So that's certainly an option for the city to fall back to if they ever needed to, but the vast majority of agencies that have put these in have been able to leave them as I showed you in the presentation with that style of operation, and it's not a widespread concern. But there have been agencies, like I said, that have had to change things because of public input after the installation.
Is there anyone else? Councilmember Beach.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I appreciate the work that's gone into this and staff and our consulting firm to really look into how to improve safety at this intersection. It's, I think, regardless of the last couple of years, whether or not anybody's been hit or killed, we can all agree it's a pretty treacherous of flashing left turn signal. I think is an interesting one. I'd never heard of that before. You answered actually one of my questions, Mr. Fitzsimmons, about what happens to pedestrians as far as the flashing left. And I do think that eliminating the flashing left when pedestrians are crossing seems like an intuitively good thing to do. I don't know if we need it, but I hope we'd be open to that as well. I think big picture, if our priority is really safety, improving the safety of people over the convenience of automobiles, traffic throughput, then if this is what our traffic engineers are saying is a good safety improvement, I think it's worth doing. And I do appreciate the update that the Traffic Safety Parking Commission voted 4-1 for this. I would be all in favor of bulb outs, pedestrian refuge islands, wherever we can put them. Because again, if the priority is truly safety, even if we do that at the expense of convenience of traffic throughput, I think that's a really good thing. And I think this intersection is going to become even more important as we construct the Broadway grade separation project as well, because it's going to become even a more complicated intersection as Broadway is under construction and shoe fly tracks are there, and certainly there'll be things shut down. So I think it's of critical importance that we deal with it sooner rather than later, even if it means it slows some of the queuing. Thank you.
Director Martusa.
Mayor, I just wanted to make a correction on my previous comment. The Traffic Safety Commission vote was 3-1, as one of the commissioners was absent at the meeting. So just wanted to point that out.
Thank you for that clarification. Councilmember Coulson.
Thank you. So it's helpful to have it in context of the traffic and safety. I really appreciate Commissioner Lee coming tonight and expressing her concerns. It helps clarify why somebody maybe had a dissenting vote. And frankly, I think her it's always great to improve the safety, but when we take this from a C to maybe a D in time length, 32 seconds up to maybe 40.5, there will be counter reactions. There'll be impatient drivers trying to hustle through more, drivers, maybe distracted with other, their cell phone or whatever while they're waiting. So I always want to make sure that if we implement something and there is feedback from the public, that the public is feeling less safe in their walking and their transit, that we would be open to making adjustments based on that. It's such a unique intersection, Mr. Fitzsimmons, which with the train tracks and the high school adjacent, there's a store right there. There's just so many changing dynamics in that area that we can't anticipate with the new apartment buildings going in, more traffic due to that I'm okay with option 2, so long as if we really get negative or adverse feedback, or there's traffic data to suggest there's more accidents or more problems, we would absolutely have to readjust this.
We make a note of that, Councilmember Coulson. That's exactly, and the opportunity that, or the mechanism we are looking at is we are able to tweak the signal timing to make specific timing in the morning, peak hours and evening peak hours, and different timing in the afternoon hours, and also to have the signal jointly work as one signal and also independently separate them at different times. So there are different set of options are available for technical folks here. And we can, if council is interested in moving forward in this project, we can go ahead and incorporate them and monitor the changes when we after installation and make adjustments as necessary.
Thank you. Do you need a motion to that effect?
I think it would be great to have a motion from the council just for the purpose of record, so we know we have council support.
All right.
So does someone want to make that motion?
I can go ahead and make that, which is, I believe, the recommendation from the teaspoon is option 2, and per included in that recommendation and per the comment from the public today, the inclusion of the bulb outs and the other recommended safety features. Is that what, would you like that all in one comprehensive package, Director Murtuza?
That would be great. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm just looking for it here in the presentation. So it's the bulb outs, the improved lighting, the improved, the no U-turn sign, I believe, makes very much sense. And then the island, is that also what does council want? Do colleagues want all of that in one comprehensive motion?
Yes, I'd like to second your motion.
Okay, thank you.
That
If I may, through the mayor,
correct?
sorry, if I may, through the mayor, there was also safety lighting. There was also the southbound bike box on Carolyn Avenue.
Okay, I mentioned the safety lighting. I did not mention the southbound bike box, just the bulb outs, northeast, southeast, southwest corners, the island, north leg, no U-turn sign, the lighting, and the bike box.
Is there a second? Let me get the second. Vice Mayor, are you okay with those added amendments there?
Absolutely.
Okay, so we have our motion made by Council Member Coulson, seconded by Vice Mayor Ortiz. Now we can have Council Member Brownrigg.
So I support the thrust of the motion. I'm a little bit concerned about legislating kind of on the fly. So for example, the island. I love, as a pedestrian, I love having islands. On the other hand, amateur drivers and I think there are a lot of them around there, often hit islands if they're not used to them. And so I'm not really pro or con. I'm just Do we know there's enough room? Do we know it'll be well enough marked that we're not going to have cars breaking tires and axles on it? And if not, then I guess my inclination would be not to be overly prescriptive in this motion, to basically support option 2. And then, you know, I don't know. I'm not quite sure procedurally.
Maybe the way it could be is supporting option 2, including and up to all those additional enhancements
Where feasible.
Yeah, because then at least like keeps the option open in case, let's say director of public works thinks it may not work.
Exactly. I would prefer that little bit of latitude for our staff to make tweaks.
That would be fine with me if
Vice Mayor, are you okay with that amendment?
Second for the third time.
All right, very good. So motion made by Councilmember Coulson, seconded by Vice Mayor Ortiz. Before we go to the vote, I'm actually going to take a different direction. I will not approve this due to the fact that I don't see the data supporting it to do these improvements. I do think, you know, paying close to $1 million for this, I just don't see the facts backing it. Commissioner Lee actually brought up a very good point that the intersection is confusing right now. So people are hesitant, they stop, they look, they take their time. My concern about this potential improvement is the queuing, and that people will get impatient and will not want to wait, and they might speed more through this intersection than actually wait and be confused the way it is right now. So I hope it works, but I just am not seeing, one, the data to support it, and two, I am concerned actually this might become a safety issue. So on that note, why don't we go to our vote? Megan.
Councilmember Beach.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and Madam City Clerk. May I just comment on the motion or a question, may I ask? Would that be okay?
We'll back up and we won't take the roll call right now, and we'll take the comment.
Would Mr. Fitzsimmons, do you think the intersection is going to be safer with these improvements or less safe? Is that a concern from the traffic engineers' perspective?
If I can show you a slide of the safety statistics that we found, that might help illuminate the question. We searched for data for the last 7 years. It's a typical thing to do in a case where the question is important. What we found were 14 reported collisions at the Carolyn intersection between 2012 and 2018. There's actually no data yet in the statewide database beyond January of 2019. 1 involved a pedestrian and 3 involved bicyclists. These 4 were outside of the typical school access time, so they presumably did not involve students. There were 4 involving an eastbound vehicle that appeared to be less likely to occur if the intersection were signalized. There were 4 that were classified as broadside collisions, which typically drop the frequency tremendously when you install a traffic signal. And two of these broadside collisions specifically were eastbound vehicles. The reported collisions, 14 over 7 years, or 6 years in this case, is not enough to do what's referred to as warranting a signal. You typically need to have at least 5 per year that are preventable by signalization. But when you add up the numbers in this slide, what you see is roughly 40% of the collisions that occurred would probably not continue occurring with the signal, and they probably would continue occurring without a signal. So there is a safety benefit. It's not as big as you would normally see for a traffic signal installation. Like I said, it doesn't meet the accident warrant for establishing the basis for installing a signal, but it is still a fairly good benefit in terms of safety. So I don't completely agree with the comments about safety. It's as hard to predict, frankly, as there are as many drivers as there are coming through the intersections. But the suggestion that people will speed through is difficult when there are standing queues of cars that are blocking them from speeding. And as you saw in the charts, there are standing queues on every single approach to the intersection. The ones that will experience the highest delays, not coincidentally, are the ones that have the longest queues. And it's very unlikely those queues will dissipate soon enough in the green that people would have several seconds of green at the end of the green display to be able to speed through. So I find that one to be debatable. It's hard to have a crystal ball, especially now when we really weren't able to observe typical traffic conditions, because for the year that we've been working on this project, COVID has really drastically changed our traffic volumes, and we just haven't been able to watch it. But I do believe there's a potential for safety benefit, actually, even though, as I said, it would not be a huge benefit, but it would be a benefit.
So I have a follow-up question then for the director. So if Mr. Fitzsimons says it doesn't really meet necessarily all the criteria to warrant it, I know that we've been pretty strict in regards to, let's just say, stop signs, that there's criteria that has to be met in order to put one up. So what makes this different? Are we allowed a little more flexibility when it comes to lights?
It's again, we have demonstrated data about accidents, but for traffic signal itself, there's the number of accidents within the time period, specified time period, do not warrant this new signal installation. However, the city council has the prerogative to install a signal. City council can go beyond the minimum warrant rules to be able to install the traffic signal.
Okay, thank you. All right, on that note, let's go into the roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Beach,
Yes.
Councilmember Colson,
Yes.
Councilmember Brownrigg,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Ortiz,
Yes.
Mayor O'Brien.
No. So motion passes at 4-1. Thank you very much, Mr. Fitzsimons, for your presentation this evening.
You're welcome. Good night.
All right. So actually on this topic, Director Martusa, will you come back then maybe during a certain time frame to let us know how this all goes?
Well, Madam Mayor, we'll be happy to do that.
Okay, that would be, I think, beneficial for all of us to get updated data. Wonderful. So on that note, we will move toward public comments. Members of the public may speak about any item not on the agenda. Members of the public wishing to suggest an item for a future council agenda may do so during this public comment period. The Ralph M. Brown Act prohibits the city council from acting on any matter that is not on the agenda. So Megan, did we get any emails at all for public comment? You're on mute.
Just realized that. We have one from Jennifer Pfaff.
Okay, would you mind reading that, please?
Recently, the council adopted an appropriate new street name, Bay Trail Lane, for a 400-foot section of public roadway created along the bayfront, adjacent to the Facebook project. During the selection discussion, several council members expressed the desire to in some way memorialize the site's original use as Burlingame's drive-in theater that was in operation from 1965 to 2002. This past weekend, while walking around the development, I found myself at 350 Beach Road, essentially the side of the Facebook campus. There I noticed a wide, newly completed walkway leading into the campus with modest landscaping underway. 350 Beach Road is actually the historical entrance into the drive-in theater where customers would purchase tickets and pick up a car radio from the kiosk. I think some kind of plaque in this location, either on public or private property, if they are amenable, would be worthwhile pursuing as this project nears its completion. The Historical Society has a few photos of the drive-in. However, this need not be made into a complicated project. Even a simple plaque or marker that reads, Burlingame Drive-In 1965 to 2002 would be better than nothing at all. In the evolution of Burlingame's suburban landscape, the site's humble beginnings as a low-scale entertainment venue into a 767,000 square foot office campus over the course of 56 years, I believe, is worthy of some kind of marker. And she sends a photo along of the area.
Thank you, Megan. Okay, I will turn it to our attendees. Is there anyone from the public that would like to speak? Okay. So going back, I do want to mention, because I didn't catch this earlier, is that Manito sent an email to the council in regard to the last item. So if you haven't referred to it at this time, it should be in your email. All right, if there's nothing else, we can move on to the next item on the agenda, which is our consent calendar. So we have items A through 8F. Is there anyone on the council that would like to pull something off? I see Councilmember Brownrigg.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd just like to briefly touch on item 8E.
Item 8E, okay. Anyone else? All right, anyone from the public would like to pull anything off?
Didn't receive emails.
Okay, very good then. So may I have then a motion for the consent calendar for 8A, B, C, D, and F?
So moved.
Madam Mayor.
All right, I'll second the vice mayor.
All right, so motion made by Vice Mayor Ortiz, seconded by Councilmember Brownrigg. We have to do roll call, sorry.
Councilmember Beach,
Yes.
Councilmember Colson,
Yes.
Councilmember Brownrigg,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Ortiz,
Yes.
Mayor O'Brien.
Yes, motion passes 5-0. Now we'll go on to item 8E. And Councilmember Brownrigg.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is basically tying a bow on the initial temporary but experimental traffic calming measures in Lion Hogue. Thanks again to staff and the Teaspoon for soldiering through with this and trying to make changes that I do think have helped in a number of ways. There are a couple of them that I find a little bit confusing and off-putting. And so my question really is this. It says in the staff report that I think it's sort of like staff will report back periodically. I'd like to suggest a check-in and really notify the public. It's up to the mayor, of course, who sets the agenda, but I'd like to suggest a check-in after a year or so and really try to advertise it and make sure that that community has the chance to continue to raise points plus or minus about the changes. I just think they are temporary, but I want to make sure that we keep listening to people and we really try to make a positive outreach. And so that's my suggestion with respect to where we are in the process.
I would actually agree with that suggestion. We've put a lot of effort into the Lion Hogue neighborhood and really learning about their concerns and what traffic improvements they want to make. And between the city council, the traffic commission, and our public works department, I think it would definitely be worthwhile doing a follow-up meeting. And I will make that to the discretion of the public works department. I want to make sure they have enough time to gather their data, to gather feedback from the neighborhood, and then set up that meeting. So whether it's 6 months, a year, 18 months, whatever staff feel is the best time to bring this up, I think would be a good idea. So if my other colleagues are on board with that, I'd kind of like to hear from them. I have a nod from Councilmember Beach. Okay, we're good with Councilmember Colson. Perfect. All right. So then on that note, Councilmember Browning, would you like to make a motion?
Let me first open it to the public.
Oh, sorry.
I don't have any emails and I don't see any attendees rushing to raise their hand, so we're good.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Megan, for the reminder.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm happy to endorse and make a motion to approve item 8E.
All right, and I will go ahead and second it. So motion made by Councilmember Brownrigg, seconded by Mayor O'Brien. Can we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Beach,
Yes.
Councilmember Coulson,
Yes.
Councilmember Brownrigg,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Ortiz,
Yes.
Mayor O'Brien.
Yes, so item number 8E passes 5-0. That leads us to our public hearings. We have one this evening, and that is a hearing and resolution of the City Council of the City of Burlingame adjusting the storm drain fee for fiscal year 2021 to 2022 by 3.6%. And I think we have Finance Director Augustine.
Okay, yes, this agenda item is the annual setting of the storm drainage fee. As you know, the fee was established to provide funding for storm drain improvement projects. And it's based on a rate per square foot of impervious area on developed Burlingame properties. The fee can be increased per the establishing ordinance each year by CPI, not to exceed 2%. However, the ordinance does allow inflationary increases to be accumulated and reported and recouped in subsequent fiscal years. And so that's why, even though the CPI increased only 1.6% as of February from the prior year, staff recommends that the fee be increased by 3.6% to recoup the amount of increase that was not implemented in 2020, as well as the 1.6% inflationary factor for 2021. Previous adjustments to the fee are outlined in a table in the staff report. It shows that CPI has pretty consistently exceeded the 2% threshold, often to a significant degree. As noted in the staff report, 3.6% increase equates to an increase of less than $10 annually for the average single-family residential lot. Also, as noted in the staff report, should the council choose not to adjust the fee by the full 3.6% recommended by staff, the resolution should clearly indicate that the city council has the right to recoup CPI increases that were not levied to the full allowable amount in prior fiscal years. Again, this would be for the benefit of both the public and the city's bondholders. An acknowledgement that future amounts collected from the fees will be adequate to pay the debt service on the bonds. This is a public hearing item, so staff recommends that the city council hold a public hearing. An increase of 3.6% in the fee is the recommendation reflected in the resolution attached to this item.
Thank you, Director Augustine. Do any of my colleagues have questions before I open it up to public comment? Okay, it doesn't look like it. All right, Megan, were there any emails from the public on this agenda item?
No, I didn't receive any.
Okay, very good. Would anyone in the public like to raise their hand on this item? Okay, it doesn't look like it, so I'll go back to my colleagues. Any comments? And if not, does anyone want to make a motion? Councilmember Beach.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. No, I do propose to accept the recommendation to adjust the storm drainage fee for fiscal year 21 by 22 by 3.6%. So I'll make that motion.
Very good. Is there a second?
Second. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Ricardo.
Okay, so motion made by Councilmember Beach, seconded by Vice Mayor Ortiz. Megan, roll call.
Councilmember Beach,
Yes.
Councilmember Coulson,
Yes.
Councilmember Brownrigg,
Yep.
Vice Mayor Ortiz,
Yes.
Mayor O'Brien.
Yes, motion passes 5-0. All right, on to staff reports and communications. We have a few appointments this evening, so we're going to start with item 10A, consideration of one appointment to the Beautification Commission.
Great, thank you.
Manager
Okay.
Goldman.
Thanks, Madam Mayor, members of the council. You had a marathon night of interviews a couple of weeks ago. And so the first set was for Beautification Commission. We had a vacancy due to the resignation of Commissioner Kiva Januri, who moved out of state, I believe. Her term was due to expire next year. So as we do with vacancies, we publicized the vacancy. Notification letters were sent to past commission applicants. We received 2 applications as of the deadline on March 5th. And then as part of your marathon series of interviews, you interviewed those 2 applicants via Zoom on March 23rd, and that was Sean Chu and Carol Batt. What we hope as staff is that you will choose to appoint one of the applicants to fill the remainder of former Commissioner Januri's term. That would be on October 7th. That would help us keep everything in line in terms of how vacancies rotate through and who gets appointed when, and keep everything the way it should be. The press release advertising the vacancy noted that the council could choose to appoint for a 3-year term. It would actually be more like a 3.5-year term. We are correcting that going forward so that anytime we have a vacancy midterm, it will just be to fill the remainder of the term. But we did want to let you know that that's how the vacancy was advertised. So you have 2 choices, Mr. Chu or Ms. Batt. Hopefully I said her name correctly. And again, it's hopefully to fill the term until October 7th. So as you chat your responses to Megan, perhaps you could just say the name and then 2022 or 2024.
Text them to me, don't chat them to me.
Sorry, I'm sorry, text them to Megan.
So question by Councilmember Brownrigg.
Yeah, I didn't expect, if we were to appoint for 3.5 years, then there's still a cycle, right?
It just messes things up. So I don't know what the exact cycle would be, but you could, for example, have 4 people come up at one time and 1 at another time, as opposed to 3 and 2, that kind of thing. And so,
but their terms are, sorry, not to be argumentative, but their terms are 3 years, right?
Correct.
So we're either doing a fraction of a term or a full term and a fraction of a term. So it wouldn't change. Correct. It wouldn't change the cycling, I don't think.
So I think it does, but Margaret, who is on this meeting, might be able to enlighten us. When I asked her if it was a problem to have somebody go beyond what Commissioner Januri's term was, she said, yes, it's a problem for us.
A question for clarification. I think you asked this, or you answered this earlier, but I just want to double check. So the way it was advertised, though, was until 2022, correct?
The way it was advertised was that the council could choose to appoint for a 3-year term, but didn't say you had to appoint for the 3-year term. And it's really a 3+ year term. So it's normally these terms usually end in October. So it's really like a 3.5-year term.
Okay, so when we're saying 2022, we would keep it in the same cycle.
Correct.
Very good. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that
So
clarification.
October 2022 keeps everything the same, and that is staff's preference.
Okay, Director Glomstadt, did you want to add anything?
Nope. City Manager Goldman got it right.
Okay, very good. Councilmember Coulson.
So I just was, I think the clarification for Councilmember Brownrigg is you have a 3 and a 2 cycle, and this would end us up with a 4 and a 1. And it's just really hard to have 4 commissioners potentially come up and be gone on a commission. It's very disruptive to have the whole commission turnover.
No, of course it is. I think I misunderstood the city manager's description. So I think I understand it better now. This is through October of 22. That's the fraction of the term. All right, not October of 21, which is what I thought we were talking about.
No. October of 22 finishes out exactly former Commissioner Januri's term.
Yeah, those we end up with the marathon interviews again.
Thank you.
Right.
All right. Very good. On that note, if there aren't any other questions, my understanding for this evening is that we text who we want appointed to our city clerk, correct?
First, we open it to public comment just in case.
Yes, right. I just wanted to clarify those directions before I opened up. Perfect. Thank you. So open it up to the attendees. Is there anyone that would like to speak on this item? Okay. And are there any emails?
No.
Very good. So now for my colleagues, please pick one person and text it to Megan. I assume everyone has her number?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Council member Beach, Carol Batty till 2022. Council member Colson, Carol Batty till 2022. Council member Brownrigg, Sean Chu till October 2022. Vice Mayor Ortiz, Sean Chu, 2022. And Mayor O'Brien, Carol Batty, 2022. So Carol, 3-2 as a majority.
Very good. Thank you. And thank you to both applicants. I will say for all our interviews that one evening, we had quite a few and we had a great applicant pool. So I'd like to thank them all for participating. All right, that leads us to item number 10B. Consideration of 2 full-term appointments to the Planning Commission.
Right, so this one's a little bit more straightforward. You have 2 vacancies on the Planning Commission, and that's due to the expiring terms of Commissioners Sandy Camarado and John Schmidt. We did our usual publicizing of the vacancies, sending notification letters. You received coincidentally 2 applications as of the deadline on February 26th, and you interviewed 2 applicants via Zoom on your marathon night. And so those applicants are Sandy Camarado and John Schmidt. Appointee terms will be for 4 years ending on April 7th, 2025.
Okay, on that note, any questions before I open it up to public comment? If not, I am opening up to public comment. Is there anyone, any attendee that would like to speak on this item? If not, Megan, were there any emails?
No.
All right. So then on that note, to my colleagues, please text our city clerk, the 2 people you want appointed for Planning Commission for the 2 full-term appointments.
Councilmember Beach, Sandy Camarado and John Schmidt. Councilmember Colson, Sandy and John. Councilmember Brownrigg, Sandy and John. Councilmember or Vice Mayor Ortiz, Sandy and John, and Mayor O'Brien, Sandy and John. So we're reappointing Sandy and John.
Very good. All right. That leads us to item 10C, which is the consideration of 1 appointment to the Planning Commission to fill the remainder of a term. City Manager Goldman.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So this is due to the resignation of Commissioner Richard Sargent, who served for quite a number of years on the Planning Commission. We did our usual publicizing of the vacancy. Notification letters were sent to past commission applicants. We received 3 applications as of the extended deadline of March 12th. You interviewed the following 3 applicants via Zoom during your marathon night: Ray Larios, Marie McDonald, and Robert Waymeyer. Mr. Waymeyer subsequently withdrew his application. And so on this one, the appointee term will be for the remaining 3 years of Mr. Sargent's former term, and that ends on April 7th, 2024.
Thank you, City Manager Goldman. Is there any comments from my colleagues? Okay. Before I open it up to the public, I would like to make a comment. I would like to thank, the two applicants for applying for the Planning Commission. I just do want to express a concern, and I know this is non-traditional, but I guess I will break a little tradition in making my comment prior to this potential vote. And serving as a prior planning commissioner, I've seen over the years how the Planning Commission has evolved and has become, I think, much more technical because we're getting a lot more bigger projects, whether it's multifamily, whether it's, office, commercial. And I do think it's very, very important to have planning commissioners who have that expertise to be able to read plans, to know the ins and outs of aesthetics and how things work. So I'm a little concerned with the two applicants that we have this evening, that they don't have those skills, and wanted to kind of throw it out there whether or not my colleagues would be open to reopening these applications for further potential applicants to apply. So is there anyone that would like to comment on what I've just brought up? I will start with Council Member Colson, followed by Vice Mayor Ortiz.
I'm happy to defer to my senior council member, Vice Mayor Ortiz.
Okay, let's go with Vice Mayor Ortiz.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I thought a little bit about that, and I do share some of your concerns. But we've had commissioners who didn't have the training in reading plans and so forth, and some of them have turned out to be quite good. Others have been a little disappointing. This is a short-term appointment, which gives us the opportunity to revisit whoever we appoint after a short period of time. It's not the full term. So I'm comfortable going ahead. And again, I don't always discount them based on their experience, because we have had, particularly there was one gentleman who lived on Columbus who was pretty good without prior experience. So I will leave it at that. Thank you.
Councilmember Coulson.
Okay, so I actually share some of the concerns that the mayor has brought up here. And it is actually quite a long term. It's all the way till April 7th, 2024. If it were 6 months or even a year, I'd probably be more inclined to do this. But I'm just concerned that there was confusion because there were two incumbents applying, and then there was another person not, that withdrew or didn't withdraw but resigned, so I think there was just some confusion from people. I spoke to some people who told me they'd be interested in applying, or they would have been interested in applying, but they just weren't clear. They thought that they were all incumbents applying, and I guess they never really understood there was a second reopening. So I guess from my standpoint, it's more, I hold us a little accountable to that, in the sense of making sure that the public has an opportunity to apply. So, I would be open to allowing, the two people who have applied to continue to keep their applications in, and then making sure that we do a good public notice and make sure that people who are interested in applying all have the chance to apply, especially since it's for actually almost a 3.5-year term.
Councilmember Beach.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I appreciate everybody's comments. From my perspective, I think there's value on a planning commission to have a member, at least one that is not an industry professional, for a couple reasons. I think it brings a different perspective. I think our last commissioner was really brought a lot of value, was not an industry professional, had some other, attendance issues, but was a terrific ad and was well respected by his colleagues. That was very clear. Certainly Councilmember Brownrigg provided a lot of value. I think we have so much, and I really do value a lot of the technical expertise. I think it's great to have some architects and developers and real estate professionals on. I think we've got that industry professional experience. By having one lay person, it's one less person that needs to recuse themselves. And I think that provides value. So I like having a little different perspective, particularly if they're bright and attentive and really want to work hard. So I'd be inclined to say that we had a rather long call, kind of two separate calls. We had some applicants and we should go forth and make a choice. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilmember Beach. What I'm going to do is, and we can comment some more, but I think I probably should open this up to public comment. And so first, to our city clerk, did you receive any emails?
I did. I received one from John Kavranian. He says, I am emailing in support of Ray Larios to the Burlingame Planning Commission. Ray will bring great experience and diversity to the commission. I highly recommend Ray, and I hope you consider him and appoint him as a commissioner.
Thank you, Megan. Let's open it up to our attendees. Is there anyone who would like to speak? Okay. I will close the public comment and I will go back to my colleagues. And now I will call on Councilmember Coulson.
Again, I just want to make sure people understand that I'm not saying that it's not valuable to have a lay person on, and I'm not saying that those people don't make good commissioners. I'm just saying that when I spoke to some people in the city, there was confusion around the application process being open, and then two incumbents applying, and then it closed, and then reopening, and people not aware that there was actually a vacancy on it. So I think there were other people that would have been interested in applying. So again,
I think we lost you, Councilmember Coulson.
Commentary to the say, oh, sorry, it's giving me unstable internet. But I'm just saying that it's to me, it's more about the process that the city, making sure that people have an opportunity to apply and that they understand there is an actual opening. Because usually when we have an opening, we'll get 6 or 7 or 8 applications just for that open position. And that's my concern, is just transparency around the public process.
All right. Vice Mayor Ortiz, followed by Councilmember Brownrigg.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I wonder if we could ask staff to briefly go over what the timeline was of the notification of the appointment. So we can, again, my sense is if there was confusion, I want to understand how it happened. And it seemed like we followed the rules, so there shouldn't have been any confusion. But if we could just, I don't know if they have information in front of them, but somehow tell us how the process went.
I can try. My executive assistant handles that, so I'm not as intimately involved in it as she is, but we had 2 slots coming up, and we noticed that, and we had an initial deadline of February 26th, and sometime just before, I believe it was just before February 26th, Commissioner Sargent let us know that he was going to resign from the commission. And I think the timing was such that he was hoping to get the whole recruitment and interviews and everything done at the same time as what we're doing now for efficiency's sake. Because we had all of a sudden an incumbent not in the mix, even though this is a different situation than what we usually have when an incumbent chooses not to reapply. we set a rule a few years ago that we automatically extend the deadline 2 weeks. So this was a slightly different situation, but because the timing was tight, we extended the deadline for a couple of weeks. And so we had the 2 incumbents apply with the original deadline. And then we had another deadline that was a couple of weeks later. So March 12th was when we had our extended deadline. And at that point, I believe those 3 applications, but I'm not 100% on this, but I believe those 3 applications came in definitely prior to March 12th and probably after the February date. I'm just scrolling back, probably after February 26th and before March 12th. But it was a little bit confusing because it was somebody leaving midterm as opposed to what normally happens, which is people filling out their terms. So we at the staff level, we're also trying to figure out how, what's the timing? How does this work? How do we do it?
And could I just one more point of clarification? I thought I heard somebody say 3.5 years. It is April of 24, which is almost exactly 3 years, correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Can I?
Councilmember Brownrigg.
Thank you. I didn't think this would go on so long. I think we should vote tonight. We have processes. We have 2 candidates who are capable. I won't speak again about the importance of lay people on commissions. I think there's value. But more importantly, I just don't see where you draw the line. Like the fact that we only had 2 incumbents throw their hats in for the 2 incumbent seats, like should we extend it so that we have more choice? I mean, I just don't, it feels to me like a really slippery slope and just not appropriate. So I think we should just vote and get on with it.
Well, I just brought it up because I had a concern. So I wanted to at least verbalize that concern, and whether there's agreement with that concern, that's fine. But I just wanted to make it public and on the record. Councilmember Beach, do you want to make a comment before we go into votes?
Yeah, I double checked the e-news here, and it seems very clear to me that the deadline was extended. So there's at least 3 notices I saw in the e-news, but this one says the city is seeking to fill 1 seat on the Planning Commission for a 3-year term. All applicants are welcome. The application deadline has been extended to 5 p.m. on March 12th. Application is supplemental. So, I mean, this was our at least 3 notices, maybe more. I think we did sufficient notice, and I agree with Councilmember Brownrigg. Thank you.
Okay, very good. So then what we'll do is, if you can text then 1 person for the Planning Commission appointment to our city clerk, please.
Okay. Councilmember Beach, Ray Larios. Councilmember Colson, Marie McDonald. Councilmember Brownrigg, Ray Larios. Vice Mayor Ortiz, Ray Larios, and Mayor O'Brien abstain.
Okay, so we have a new commissioner, Ray Larios. Okay, let's go on to the next appointment, 10D, which is consideration of an appointment to the Traffic Safety and Parking Commission.
Okay, this one is due to another resignation that we had. Commissioner Chris Bush, whose term was to expire at the end of this year, also moved out of town. This vacancy was publicized, notification letters were sent to past applicants, etc. We received 6 applications as of the March 12th deadline, and you interviewed all 6 on your marathon night. So is Athen, Rebelos, Eric Klein, Prentice Ing, James Haggerty, John Allen, and Christopher Beal. I apologize if I got anybody's names wrong. This is another one where the advertising about how long the term was not as efficient as it could have been. We are hoping that you will appoint 1 applicant to fill the remainder of former Commissioner Bush's term, just like we had with the Beautification Commission, and that is at the end of this year. However, the press release did say that you might choose to appoint for a 3-year term. So if you do make the longer appointment, then that would be till November 6, 2024. But again, for ease of rotation and whatnot, November 6th of 2021 would be staff's preference. Thank you.
All right. Does anyone have questions before I open it up to public comment? Okay. Megan, did anyone send an email?
No, I did not receive.
All right. Opening it up to the attendees. Is there anyone that would like to speak? All right. If not, I'll go back to my colleagues. So you will be texting Megan one appointment.
Okay. Councilmember Beach, Prentice, how do I pronounce the last name? NG? Ning?
Ing.
Yang?
Ing.
Yang. Thank you, Mike.
Like ING.
ING.
Ing. Thank you. Thank you, guys. Thanks, council. Okay. So Councilmember Beach, Ing. Councilmember Colson, Eric Klein. Councilmember Brownrigg, Rebellis. Vice Mayor Ortiz, Rebellis. And Mayor O'Brien, Eric Klein. And Mayor O'Brien was the only one that did the whole assignment and let me know that it was only for the remainder of the term. So in this next round of votes, since we came to a tie between Klein and Rebellis, you guys should discuss, but then let me know who you would like and for how long.
Let's go. Okay, I have 3 hands up. So let me see what order those went up. Let's start with Councilmember Brownrigg, followed by Councilmember Beach, then Councilmember Colson.
So this part's always awkward for all of us. I will say, I listened, I think we all did, to the 6 interviews, and I could have created a whole new traffic safety and parking commission by picking 5 of them. I mean, they were all that good. And I certainly think Mr. Klein was very impressive. I will speak briefly for Mr. Rebellos. It's almost a 180 from the last conversation. Traffic safety and parking commissioners generally are lay people because there aren't that many traffic engineers in town, unlike planning where there's real estate and builders, blah, blah, blah. And so that's great. They're all doing a great job. But what I was impressed by with Mr. Rebellos was that he has deep substantive knowledge from working on issues like this around the country and with traffic commissions around the country. And so again, nothing taken away from any of the other applicants. I just thought Mr. Rebellos's domain expertise was special. And that's why I voted for
him. Okay, next is Councilmember Beach.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. No, I thought all the candidates were some of the strongest that we've ever had for Traffic Safety Parking Commission, hands down. I had 3 that I really had difficulty deciding who to cast a vote for. And Mr. Rebellos was one of my top 3 for sure. I feel very comfortable given that we have a 2-2 vote supporting Mr. Rebellos for all the reasons that Councilmember Brownrigg mentioned, but also I really like that he talked about equity of space out there. And I think he really brings, for all modes of transportation, I think he brings some professional expertise that's very valuable. They all were terrific, but I'm comfortable supporting Mr. Rebellos as well. Thank you.
Councilmember Colson.
Okay, I'm still going to pitch for Mr. Klein. Mr. Klein also has a infrastructure and in that, and he runs a global, sorry, my internet keeps going down.
Yeah, do you want to repeat what you just said, Councilmember Colson? Because I don't know about my colleagues, but I didn't hear what you said.
Okay, I can see my internet's giving me trouble here, but so I'm going to still continue to support Mr. Klein, and the reason is twofold. One, he has a very significant background also in infrastructure management and transportation management. In fact, I think that's his degree, his undergraduate, if not master's degree. He runs a big global and sort of international transit operation. And so I feel very confident. And he comes from a family of civil engineering background and expertise. So I feel very confident that he has significant amount of expertise in this area. But I also there has not been anyone from sort of a lot of people from sort of my neighborhood, this side of El Camino and up over here. He lives in this area, and I think with a lot of the work on El Camino Real, and again, the work on the Peninsula Interchange, having somebody with that kind of background and that experience, who is from sort of this other part of town, closer to El Camino, will be very helpful. So, and he has lived here for quite a while, dealing with small children, biking, and he has a business downtown. So he bikes to work, walks to work, drives to work, and has a lot of hands-on livable experience in this city, sort of doing what we all do day in, day out.
Vice Mayor Ortiz.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm going to keep it real short. I struggled with this one. There was very, very good candidates all around. One of the things that Mr. Klein said about living in Holland and some of his experience with biking in Holland was very compelling. But at the end of the day, Mr. Rebellos and his experience and his participation in similar bodies and other municipalities was a really compelling difference. And so I am going with Mr. Rebellos. Thank you.
Okay. Why don't we send our votes into Megan with the end term date?
Okay. Councilmember Beach, Rebellos for the remainder of the term. Councilmember Colson, Eric Klein for the remainder of the term. Councilmember Brownrigg, Rebellos for the remainder of the term. Vice Mayor Ortiz, Rebellos for the longer term. And Mayor O'Brien, Eric Klein for the remainder of the term. So it looks like it's Rebellos for the remainder of the term.
I'd like to thank all the applicants for applying. The traffic and safety, I will say, it was a very hard one. They were all excellent candidates. So congratulations, and we look forward to our new commissioners. All right, on to item 10E, which is for information purposes. The staff's intent to submit 2 community project funding requests to Representative Jackie Spear and provide feedback on those.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I will take this, and I am joined in this one by Margaret Glomstad, our Parks and Recreation Director, and Syed Murtuza, our Public Works Director. But we have to thank Niall Blackburn from my office, who actually did all the hard work on this item. So once upon a time, we had something in the federal government called earmarks, where members of Congress and in the House and in the Senate could submit projects in their own districts for federal funding through the appropriations process. And 10 or so years ago, earmarks went away, and that was a sad day for us in local government, but it also made some sense because the earmark process was getting to be a little bit troublesome. So earmarks are back now in the House of Representatives. We don't know yet what will happen in the Senate, but the House has chosen to reinstate them. They have renamed them Community Project Funding Requests, or CPF. And they'll be in the federal fiscal year 2022 appropriation cycle. Their fiscal year starts later than ours. Theirs is October 1st to September 30th. So in March, each of the House Appropriations subcommittees released information on the accounts that will be open. So not everything is open for earmarking or these community project funding requests, but there are a lot that are. And there's specific guidance for the different project requests. Each House member is limited to a total of 10 requests for his or her entire district. So no guarantee that any of our projects will get submitted because we are up against every other local government within Representative Spears' district, along with nonprofits. And we just don't know how she'll decide to submit and what she'll decide to submit. But that being said, we have been working with the Ferguson Group, or TFG, and that is our federal representative in Washington. Those are the folks that are helping us with the Broadway grade separation process, with the infra grant and the build grants that we've submitted. And they have advised us, after talking to Congresswoman Spears' staff, that we submit no more than 2 projects before the deadline of April 14th, which is just around the corner. Originally, the deadline was April 1st. We were going to submit projects and let you know about it after the fact, but they moved the deadline to April 14th. So that gave us an opportunity to come here and chat with you about it. And so we have 2 projects that we wanted to submit. The first one is photovoltaic panels or solar panels on the community center. So there is a really great, wonderful, robust fundraising effort going on for the community center to pay for lots of other projects that we have for the community center, but we just don't know how that fundraising will end up. And if we don't raise enough money, then the photovoltaic panels, which are critical for us to have a zero net energy building, will have to come out of our general fund or our capital reserve. So it's about a $900,000 project, and we wanted to submit that project to Housing and Urban Development. Has a program called Economic Development Initiatives, and that program supports projects that involve activities such as economic development, housing rehabilitation, property acquisition, rehabilitation, public owned property, construction, reconstruction, or installation of public facilities, public works, and other site improvements. So it's kind of a catch-all for we're not really sure where else anything belongs. So EDI is the program to go after. So again, we thought this would be a good program for EDI funding. It's about $900,000. There's some examples of where EDI funding has gone in the past. And the second project I won't go into because we had quite a lengthy discussion earlier this evening, but it's the Okra traffic signal project. And that would be funded by the Department of Transportation's Local Transportation Priorities Program. This is a new account in fiscal year 2022, federal fiscal year 2022. And we have checked with DC staff, and this is an appropriate program or project, to submit for this program. So those are our 2 projects that we're submitting. They're separately from this community project funding request. There is a new House Transportation Infrastructure Surface Transportation Authorization Bill. That is going to be the big mega bill that they do every 5 to 7 years for all sorts of transportation. It had lots of cutesy names in the past, like Safety and Ice Tea and TLU and all sorts of other little cutesy acronyms. I don't know what the cutesy acronym will be this year, but we will be submitting the Broadway grade separation project to that bill, hoping to get it into that authorization bill. That's the type of project, that authorization bill is where you put your big dogs, your really large projects. The community project funding is really for your much smaller dollars. So just one thing I neglected to say is that Representative Spears' community project funding request form says priority will be given to projects that can improve the lives of families in our district and can obligate all requested funds within 12 months after enactment. And so both of these, I'm sorry, hold on one sec. Sorry. We had a visitor just walk in the door and she had to say hello. All of these projects can be done within the time frame and would meet the improving the lives of families in the district, et cetera. So we thought those were good projects to submit. Our deadline is the 14th. We have everything well underway, but we were looking for feedback. If you had anything you wanted us to swap out for one of these projects, we can quickly put together it's just like a one-page application we have to submit through their site. So with that, Margaret and Syed are also on this call if you have any questions for them, and I'm happy to answer your questions. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Lisa. Does anyone have any questions? Okay, if not, Megan, do we have any emails from the public on this item?
We do not.
Okay, thank you. So I will open it up to our attendees. Is there anyone that would like to speak on this project or on this item? All right. Colleagues, what is your fancy? Are we all okay with this? Do we want to change it? Okay, so I have a thumbs up, I think, from Councilmember Beach, Councilmember Brownrigg, and Councilmember Colson. And where are you, Vice Mayor? Are you okay with it?
I'm good. I have thumbs up.
Okay, perfect. All right, and I'm good with it too. So let's hope to get some funding on this.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you to Niall and all our staff that has been involved in putting this together. All right. Item 11, any council committee reports that you want to do verbally? Okay, if not, anyone have anything for future agenda items? I have, who do I have here? Councilmember Beach.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I did have some constituents ask me for an update on our Village at Burlingame wonderful affordable housing project. I know that, COVID takes a toll on things and maybe there were some other things, but it would be great if, when the time is right, if perhaps we could have an update presentation. I don't know if anybody else would be interested in that as well.
Okay. So to our city manager, let's see when we can put that on futuristically.
Will do.
Very good. All right. Anyone else? If not, then we will go into acknowledgements, and I am actually going to go actually have Vice Mayor Ortiz speak on this one, because we do have a parishioner that we both know from Our Lady of Angels that recently passed.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just have a short comment for our friend Jimmy O'Connor, who passed on February 26th. He's survived by his wife Barbara and his children Anne, Aiden, and Kate, and the stepchildren Casey and Gabriella. He was a native of Irishtown in County Mayo, Ireland, and moved to the United States in 1985. He is a member of a very prominent family in Burlingame, the Norton family, and our thoughts are with the Nortons and with the O'Connors back in Ireland. And I just wanted to also mention, minutes ago, we received the notification of the passing of Assembly Member Gene Mullen. So maybe we can close in his memory too.
Hear, hear.
Thank you very much, Vice Mayor Ortiz. On that note, we can adjourn this meeting. And everybody have a good evening.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Good evening.
Bye-bye.